morning, everybody. Welcome to this nice, crisp February, what is it? February the 7th, 2014. Anyway, I'd like to welcome everybody, and let's start off with Pledge Allegiance to our flag, which is over here. Most of you can see it, but it's that way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to welcome elected officials, Jerry V. Hahn. Jerry? Oh, there we are. Okay. Buncombe County Commissioner David King. Dusty Pless, Buncombe County School Board. Judge Alan Thornburg. Judge. We also have a candidate, Thomas Ambergery.
Amberg. That's right.
Amberg. Thomas, welcome. Come back and see us. He's District Court Judge. Now, starting our program, we'd like to ask Marilyn McDonald of AV Tech to give us their welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We are so happy to have you here. It's great. It looks like it's a great turnout, and we are really happy to have you in the facility. Dr. Dennis King, who is the interim president of AV Tech, wishes he could be here. He actually is in Colorado this morning, I think, with the people from New Belgium. So welcome. We just wanted, Shelley White is the Senior Executive Director of
Economic and Workforce Development and all of our continuing education programs.
And I am Strategic Business Development Officer, and we both live on this campus, I guess is what you would say. In front of you is, should be on your table, is a booklet that was just produced. We have branded this campus as the Business Acceleration Site in ENKA because the main focus of the programming that goes on in both of these two buildings, and I'll let Shelley tell you briefly what happens in the Haynes Center, and then I'll talk about what happens across the street in the Small Business Center and Technology Commercialization Center. But the Business Acceleration Site in ENKA, because really the focus of what we do on this site is related to business, large and small.
And this facility, as you can see, has wonderful conference facilities. We have a smaller room just adjacent here, and of course the catering kitchens. So we can welcome large and small groups at any time. As well as our economic and workforce development industrial outreach. We have a team of staff who engage with business every day. Their sole purpose is to go out and let the business community know what the college can do in partnership with them in terms of training, as well as workforce development training for the general public. So we work with businesses to find out what the workforce needs are and develop training programs. It could be a one-day workshop, you might need a refresher and some computer skills, or a 16-week machining program or industrial maintenance program to help individuals gain additional skills needed for the workplace. So we're always out and engaging, but also here our focus is training. And we welcome you to ask questions, let us know how we can help you. Thank you for being here.
Across the parking lot, the Small Business Center houses our Small Business Center network location where we do everything the Small Business Center does. It's the General Assembly categorically funds the Small Business Center network. And so everything is free for small business, for entrepreneurs. There are seminars. There is counseling that is done every day. My staff across the street last year saw about 500 different individual business clients and helped support them in their growth and their expansion. In their recently, Small Business Center Network actually helped with taxes that were in arrears for small businesses and collected about $140 million statewide in taxes that were in arrears and helped the business people get out of trouble and get on the right path with that. In addition to the free counseling, the seminars that we do there, we have a small business incubator. There are currently 20 companies in incubation across the street in the two buildings. 5 of those are student companies, 15 are traditional companies, and they range from web development to a new biotechnology company that you may have seen that we just recruited, FX Immune. That was in the paper. We work with the Economic Development Coalition very closely. We have on staff a technology commercialization support person, a venture growth advisor who helps small businesses try to find funding, locate capital. We have a biotechnology center, the BioNetwork at AV Tech, and there are 5 different labs where we're working with people to develop products or test products for quality. Natural products, there will be a new food quality lab. We have a biofuels testing lab and a distillation lab working with the fermentation and distillation programs in partnership with Appalachian State and other universities. And the last thing that I'll mention is Blue Ridge Food Ventures, which is a partnership with Advantage West, an 11,000 square foot commercial food kitchen where we help companies produce food products, or do they cater from there? They may the food trucks do a lot of their preparation there to make sure that the food manufacturers are safely preparing those and learning how to market them. So those are the things that go on across the street. I also am executive director of a foundation for entrepreneurial development. We have a couple of projects going on. You may have seen recently in the paper the tech accelerator, the Iron Yard that we're partnering to bring, and that will be in the green tech space. And then Catherine Marsani is our director of the Center for Professional Studies, which is another program that's just launched through the foundation. That's not a philanthropic foundation. It is all about entrepreneurial development. So those are the things that go on this campus every day. We thought we would just take a couple minutes of your time and let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I inadvertently missed Larry Harris, town alderman for Black Mountain. Larry. Also, Nathan Ramsey just popped in for us. Nathan, glad to have you. All right, first item on the agenda. John Creighton, Assistant County Manager on the AV Tech Construction Project update. Been a long time, John. Well,
Mike asked me to come and kind of talk about the AV Tech projects that are being funded by the sales tax, 4% sales tax that was passed 3 years ago. When that was originally passed, it was projected to produce about $134 million, and it would be payable, that tax would be implemented over about 17 years. So there was a list of projects that were planned at that time. And back in 2006, there was a master plan done at AV Tech. And then, at that time, President Bailey was there, Ray Bailey was there. And then after that, it became a new president, so it got tweaked. And then after that, a new president came and it got tweaked again. So the list kind of fluctuated. But anyway, AV Tech really didn't have anybody that had any expertise in building. So through some different, moves that happened, Logan County took over construction of the projects. That was basically the design aspect. And for the projects that are currently going on right now, we chose the route of doing a construction manager risk. Basically, you advertise for a contractor, a building contractor, and then you pick the most qualified. In the cases that of the projects that I'm getting ready to talk about, there's a couple exceptions here, but the major ones. We picked a combination of American South and H&M Constructors. So, and I'm a firm believer in seeing a risk in the fact that, one, I get to pick my builder, and instead of just bidding the project out. And in the environment that we've been in since 2007, most of the time if you get an out-of-town contractor, they'll bring the mechanical contractor with them and an electrical contractor with them. So it doesn't give the local contractors as much of a shot at getting work. Where the CM, all those things are bid at. All the plumbing, the mechanical, the concrete work everything else is bid out. So it gives, I feel like it gives the local contractor a better shot of getting work. So first project, before we even took over, AB Tech started building sidewalks and paving parking lots. And I've kind of outlined here in orange, there's two parking lots. There's one that used to be a baseball field that's over, if you're familiar with Ferdyhurst Drive. This is Victoria Road, coming Ferdyhurst Drive. This is Maple back here. Coleman Student Center is here. They paved this parking lot. This big orange area was an area that a lot of field came from Memorial Mission. So that was very steep. They filled that area in, and then they paved it. Currently, right now, we've got a sidewalk project that is going on Victoria Road, pretty much from Simpson building all the way up to where you turn into the daycare center, almost to where you turn into Asheville High is right here, where you turn into their back parking lot. So that's about $1.5 million project. The main project that's going on over at AB Tech is Allied Health building. This was part of the bond issue. It was programmed. Currently, this Allied Health happens in the rhododendron building. And that building was built in the 60s. There was an addition put on it in the early 90s. And it's a building that really doesn't meet the needs. A lot of nurses, dental training, those kind of medical activities go on here. Originally, we started design on this building about, well, it was over 2 years ago. And at that time, the president wanted the building pushed back towards Livingston Street. This building is going to be built up. If you come down Victoria Road, there was the Madonna building, and the Pines building was built right on the road. We tore those buildings down, and Allied Health is just a big parking area. It's going to go there. So we started design on the building. The program called for an 800-seat auditorium on the first floor. And with the location of the building plus the auditorium, it was just causing a lot of extra expense. When you're trying to span an area that big for 800 people to sit, and then you build a building on top of it, structural-wise, the foundation gets real big, pretty much get into bridge beams to span that area without having columns. Naturally, you wouldn't want a column in an auditorium. And it just became, it just got out of sight. So what we did at that point, we became really in charge of everything that was being constructed. Took over and basically moved the building up, took the auditorium out, and just that move there saved almost $15 million. I'm happy to say the building now is starting construction. The contract has been awarded. They're moving dirt on the site, taking down trees, pulling up pavement, and it's going to be an 18-month project. In turn, what we did after we took the auditorium out, AB Tech still had a real need for an auditorium. And they don't really have any flex space. They don't have any multi-purpose space that, okay, we've got a program that's just going to go on for a semester or whatever. And on the main campus, there's just not a lot of room. So we're currently designing right now, it's a 25,000 square foot building. It will seat 800 people, but it will also be able to have the capability of being divided into 3 different rooms so that the other programs can go on other than large groups. We're doing a catering kitchen because they do have a world-renowned culinary class. So we feel like that, okay, students can come down here, get some on-the-job training, and AB Tech wanted security moved into this building. Currently, their security offices is out of sight. You don't know where it is. Unless, I've never been there before. It's just off basically in the back of the campus. So they wanted to move security up where it could be seen, where there would be a presence on campus. So we're building this building, and the projected cost, total cost is $7 million. Now, AV Tech is also, when they asked for security to come in, they took $500,000 of their money and put it in with the bond money. And if you've ever been to AV Tech during the day and tried to find a parking place, it's almost impossible. I mean, I went over there to kind of scope out a site for a parking deck and couldn't find a parking space. And I figured when I was in a county car, I'll just park here, maybe we won't tell me. But what we basically did was took the design of the College Street deck that we just completed about 6 years ago, and going to put it beside the multi-purpose room behind the Coleman Center. And like I said, we're reusing the same design. We're going to put a skin on it where the one downtown has a brick facade on it. But it's the same layout, 650 spaces. And what we did was that we want these projects all to come about and everything be completed, the parking deck, the multi-purpose auditorium building, and allied health at the same time. So the contractor is going to be involved in all three of them. The other thing that we did was that we're building currently, right now, I don't have a picture of it, but the classroom facility for emergency services down at the training center in Woodford. We built a $15 million training facility. It's a track, different buildings for people to train in fire modules and that in Woodford, but there's not a classroom. So the county, it's going to be a county building, but AV Tech is going to build it. It's already closed in, anticipated in August that it'll be completed. DLAT, EMS, any kind of emergency services, sheriff, police, will train in this building. So when you look at the original projections that were made back in 2006, we've kind of shifted things around, and still we're about $10 million ahead. And that's basically on the savings that we came up with on allied health. When these projects got all going, it was kind of a push to say, okay, what's next? What's on the list? And we just basically felt real uncomfortable that it's been almost 10 years since the master plan was done where it involved everybody. Then it was tweaked, and it was tweaked again. That we convinced AV Tech, let's go back and revisit the master plan before we spend any more money. Last thing I'd hate to see happen is that, once all this money's spent, 5, 8 years from now, we wake up and say, oh man, I wish we'd done this. Or, why have we got all this space for this? Allied Health, I didn't mention, it has a 4.5 that's shelled in for future growth. So we feel like that, okay, we can meet that capacity for the medical needs down the road. The master plan, we interviewed firms last week. I anticipate within the next couple of weeks that we'll have somebody in to start working on the master plan. That's going to take a process, probably 6-8 months to do. And then I feel like that we've got a plan. We can take the rest of the money that's been programmed from the bond issue and spend it wisely. So that's kind of a recap of where we are, what we spent, and what's going on currently. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir. I would have been hurt.
Well, I know you would. Tell us more about Woodman, about the health and safety part of it, because that was a big concern of mine. Are you going to have the firing range and the other things down there? Or
The firing range is still up in the air. I mean, obviously, the firing range costs a lot of money. The commissioner's very concerned. We've looked at a couple of other sites. I don't know. I put a firing range up there right next to a landfill as far as being able to site it in the community. I mean, nobody wants to pay for it, but nobody wants it next door to their house. We're trying to, right now we're talking with Henderson County, the city of Asheville, and Madison County to have it in one facility. And it's just a hard thing to do. The problem is the time is starting to run out. I mean, right now we have a firing range over on the Biltmore State, and they've been gracious for, I don't even know how many years, more than 15. to allow us there. But they've pretty much said, it's time for you all to move on. Obviously, everybody has their needs as far as certifications. And, my hopes are that, okay, the land is there. I don't know if you could do an outdoor facility anyplace, especially in Buncombe County. And it's harder in other counties. Right now, for rifles and stuff, the sheriff has made a deal with Madison County. You can go down there and use their old landfill, but, you really don't know how long it's good for. We have a great facility at Woodford. I encourage anybody to come out there and take a look at it. I mean, it's state of the art. It's one of the best in the state, if not the best. And it just makes sense for that facility to go out there. We initially tried that, put an outdoor range there, and just one, obviously noise is a factor. Two is everybody's afraid to straight bullet will hit them while they're mowing the yard, or their child's out, swinging in the swings. It's just a very hard thing. It's a legitimate argument. So, but it's something that we're going to have to address fairly soon.
Question? John?
Wait a minute, I have a question, not a question, I want to make a comment about John Creighton. This project, one thing he did not say is, with the changes and once he took over and started working on this building's got an additional 100,000 square feet. We also have a parking deck, which was not in the original plan, and it's coming in $10 million under the original budget. So we can thank John for his guidance and work on that.
Thanks, John. Next item on the agenda, Beyond Coal Initiative, Kelly Martin. From the back.
Nothing ceremonious here?
No.
All right.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. All right, I will. Good morning, everyone. Oh, nice, like church or something. My name is Kelly Martin, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I work with the Sierra Club, which is the nation's oldest environmental group in the country. And specifically, I work in the Beyond Coal campaign, which is our effort that is happening in nearly every state in the country, where we are working to transition and facilitate a transition from coal to clean energy across the country, which means we advocate in front of the utility regulators, we work with the utilities, we file lawsuits, we educate the public and engage citizens in energy choices. And so I lead that work here in North Carolina and also in Florida. And so when I saw the agenda for today, you folks had asked me to come, and when I actually saw the agenda, because Jason at Duke sent it to me graciously, and I saw that the question on there to frame today's conversation was, do we at the Asheville Beyond Coal campaign want to see the Lake Julian plant shut down? And so I thought that I would just take a minute to address head on the question, which is that we do, in fact, envision a day when Western North Carolina gets our electricity from a source other than coal. And so I don't want Gary Wisnett, the plant manager, to flip the switch and turn off the electricity for Western North Carolina and for the vital services that electricity provides here. So that's not what we're going for. I, like all of you, know that electricity is a vital and important and essential part of our economy and our lives, and that we need reliable and affordable electricity. And what is happening, though, is that we think that transition off of coal is indeed within our grasp and is indeed a realistic transition that's happening across the country. So I'm going to speak a little bit to the trends in the electricity market, but I'll start by just saying why we want to get off coal. And so there's a lot of reasons, but one is that this is an outdated and fairly inefficient way of generating electricity. And Yeah, I can move this. I don't have to stand on my tiptoes. That's better. Can y'all still hear me? All right, good. So the burning coal, the piece that motivates me as an environmental advocate, and I don't imagine that this is what motivates all of you, but the piece that motivates me is around climate change, and that burning coal is the largest single source of climate disrupting carbon pollution in this country. So the plant there at Lake Julian is equivalent to about 500,000 cars on the road in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So if we want to tackle climate change, the best way we can do that is help facilitate this transition off of coal across the country. So it's strategic, and that's what motivates me. But what is really important, obviously, is that other sources of electricity can provide cleaner air and cleaner water. So I remember when, as many of you do, before the Lake Julian plant here had air pollution controls on it. And quite literally, the air, I can remember walking home from work some days back a decade or so ago, and the air pollution was thick and heavy, and you could feel it in the air and you could breathe it. And that was coming from TVA plants that didn't have air pollution controls, and also coming in from Tennessee, and also from here in Western North Carolina. And so the investments in air pollution controls have really helped in terms of our asthma rates and our ability to breathe clean air. But what unfortunately has happened, and I'm not sure we knew this or that the utilities knew this at the time, but is that as we take out all the particulates and all the chemicals that were going into the air, they're now being stored in coal ash, which is stored primarily in wet ponds held back by earthen dams at 14 locations across the country, across the state, and Duke Energy's plants. And we unfortunately have the disaster that's just happened, if you guys have heard on the news, near Danville, Virginia, the Dan River coal plant. That is a retired coal plant of Duke Energy's, where there was a stormwater pipe just earlier this week that ruptured underneath the coal ash dam, spilling 80,000 tons of coal ash laden with things like arsenic and mercury and lead into the Dan River. And that's, for those of you that are visual, it's in the ballpark of 200 rail cars full of toxic coal ash that's now in the Dan River. And there's an ongoing effort to figure out how to address that and clean it up, but as of right now, the pipe's still dripping. I wouldn't say it's gushing, it's dripping. So it's still not plugged. And so, it's an important issue to figure out how we protect our waterways. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, since that's a really big ongoing issue that our state is grappling with right now. So I guess on the upshot, so the reasons we want to see us move off coal are because of climate change, because of clean air and clean water. But also, as an environmental advocate, it's not often that I get to say that the economics are finally on our side. And so as someone that's been looking for a transition to clean energy for the past, almost 2 decades, it is a really, really exciting time in the electricity markets, because finally we're seeing the cost of coal going up. So while it was and I'll tell you why I think that's a good thing, is that while for decades coal has been the cheapest, undoubtedly the cheapest source of electricity, if you're just looking at the pure cost, what's happening now is the cost of fossil fuels is going up dramatically. The cost of natural gas is way down, but as nearly 150 coal plants, actually it's 155 coal plants in the past 4 years across the country have been announced for retirement, utilities are moving off of coal. And what that has done is open up market space for clean energy. So we're seeing wind energy in the Midwest out-competing not only coal, but actually being cheaper than new natural gas plants in many places in the Midwest. They have great wind resource, and it's finally cheaper to get our power from wind than it is from fossil fuels, which is from the standpoint of wanting to see clean air and clean water and tackling climate change. That's an exciting thing. It's also exciting because it's an innovative new economy. We're seeing more jobs right now in the clean energy economy than we are in the fossil fuel industry, and that includes mining. So there's more jobs in solar and wind in this country than there are in coal and natural gas. And this is, it's happening pretty fast. And here in North Carolina, we're seeing some of the benefits of it. We have I don't know if y'all know this, but North Carolina is number 2 for installed solar capacity in the country. So we have a really robust solar market, and that means we have upwards of 15,000 jobs in North Carolina being created by the solar industry. So we see that as a really exciting thing, and we think that, and I guess I'd just offer that, the electricity market is really changing rapidly. So whereas we, for decades, have gotten electricity from these single, centralized units generating our electricity 24/7, what we're seeing is a need for a more flexible and more distributed energy resource. So we're seeing more sources of energy in terms of solar and wind. We're seeing deep investments of energy efficiency. So we can actually save our customers money. We can save customers money, and we can save electricity at the same time by making investments in energy efficiency. And in North Carolina, we just worked with the regulators to make sure that Duke Energy can be compensated for that, so that they can be fairly compensated for saving electricity, because that's better for ratepayers and better for the environment on the long run. And so I think this transition is one that we will see happening over the decade or so to come in a big way. And I would offer to you that when we talk about, it makes people nervous. It's a pretty radical vision to talk about moving off of the coal plant that's been our electricity source for 40 years. But it is indeed happening all over the country. We're seeing coal plants retired, and no more coal plants are going to be built, folks. The Cliffside coal plant is probably one of the last in the country that is going to be built. And the transition is one that is not happening overnight. So the analogy, I have 3 small children, and when they grow up, I want them to be productive members of society. I want them to have an awesome job where they contribute and find value in their work. And I'm not going to start talking to them about that or preparing them for that when they're 18 or when they're in high school. I send my twins to preschool. I've got a kindergartner who we're investing in her education and taking time to train her and prepare her for what's to come in the world, right? And it's not so different than how we envision moving off of coal, that we need to prepare now and make investments and advocate for energy solutions and for the clean energy economy now, so that when the time is right for us to transition off of coal, we will be prepared. We can't flip the switch and no longer rely on coal plants today. But if we make the accurate and appropriate investments now, we will be prepared when that time comes. So I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions. Thanks again for having me. Yes, sir.
Certainly not.
I've got a question for you. And I think you're very passionate on the subject you speak on, and I admire you for that. The problem I'm having is that you talked about the end of fossil fuel. Your organization is working nationwide. You talk about you have 3 small children. And the question I'd like to pose to you, power plants typically have to plan out 50 years to make a huge investment. So in light of that, how do you see Lake Julian getting off of fossil fuel in 50 years? Because based on our area, I don't see that happening, but your organization should take that in consideration, because we as ratepayers have to pay for your complaint. So if you could give us some insight on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I would offer that we're saying it should be off of coal in 50 years, and I think the utilities would agree with that, actually. I don't think that's the Sierra Club's position. I think that's the utilities' position, too, because we're not going to burn coal down forever. But at any rate, I'd say that one of the most compelling things is that when we invest in, for example, solar power, we are making a hedge against the rising cost of fossil fuels. So we're locking in contracts with renewable energy providers for 20 years, 30 years, and we know what that fuel cost is going to be, and nothing. And we know what the cost of the electricity generation is going to be. We don't know what the cost of coal is going to be. We don't know what the cost of natural gas is going to be. We don't know how high those go up. So there's actually a pretty compelling argument in the economics for locking in some of the cheaper sources of electricity on the long term, if you take that long-term view. And then the other piece is that, you know, it's a complicated grid. You know, we don't operate just in the 5-county, we don't get our electricity just in Western North Carolina and not tied in. It's tied into decisions that TVA is making and that Duke is making fleet-wide. So those all play into the factor. Yep.
A few moments ago, you talked about how you didn't want the switch turned off at Lake Julian plant, and I applaud you for confirming that.
Today. At some
Today.
point, I want that switch turned
Today.
off. But, yeah.
But a few months ago, we had some people that did want the switch turned off, and they were willing to engage in criminal conduct to do that. I would be interested in hearing what your organization has and what kind of outline your organization has to discourage this type of criminal conduct and the jeopardization of our entire society, the hospitals, the electric service, and that sort of thing.
So you're talking about 2 years ago when Greenpeace activists trespassed onto the Lake Julian plant.
And I'd like to see or hear what kind of plans you have to discourage that sort of thing.
You know, I see my role as much more about advocating for solutions for clean energy than it is about telling people what they should and shouldn't be doing with their time. So our organization works within the courts, and we work within the media, and we have dialogue with Duke Energy directly. We work with our local elected officials to talk about these issues and laws that protect our air and water and that address climate change. We advocate within the Environmental Protection Agency, and we have 2 million members and supporters nationwide. So we're a pretty different animal than Greenpeace. You're not going to see the Sierra Club hanging off your smokestacks. So that's not the type of tactic we do. And at the same time, my priority is working to create what I see as meaningful and effective bridge building and dialogue like this one with people that may not agree with us to get on the long term, start those conversations happening. Yes.
Ms. Martin, you mentioned on all these coal plants retiring.
You know, a lot of the coal plants are retiring because we have natural gas and they're switching to natural gas. What's your views on natural gas? And as you're probably aware, we have a limitation on natural gas here in Western North Carolina. We don't have any natural gas capacity for our businesses and others. So do you support natural gas as being a viable alternative for base load generation? Because solar and renewables are awesome, but we have to have some power source that we can run 24/7, and we know that it will be there.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Representative. Now the issue of natural gas. I'll be honest. When we started this work, say 10 years ago, fracking was not an issue. And so, if you're looking at the plant, natural gas is far cleaner and far less carbon emissions to burn at the plant. As the issues of hydraulic fracturing as that has made for cheap natural gas, it's also created groundwater problems because we don't have adequate laws that regulate fracking and nationwide. And so we are concerned about that. And so while we want to see a transition entirely off of coal, we're not calling for that same transition off of natural gas. we recognize that there's an important role that it plays in the mix. However, as we're building out the future for our electricity sources, we want to leapfrog over natural gas as much as possible. We want to see deeper investments in energy efficiency, deeper investments in solar and wind power where appropriate in order to meet our generation needs. And while, to get to your question of that the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow, that's true, but it's pretty well documented when the sun is going to shine and when the wind is going to blow, and we can plan for that. And we're seeing some really innovative work happening in the Midwest states to integrate renewables into the grid. I think I'm getting the boot, so thank you guys very much for that.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. And first, we start ducking out there in the Midwest with those winds.
One more time, I'll just have to.
Sorry, Mike. All right, we'll get back. We've got an exciting portion now from Shannon Tuck. Talk about the permitting in the city of Asheville. Shannon is the Development Services Director. Thanks, Shannon.
Guess I have to adjust it up a little bit.
Well, good morning. I see a lot of familiar faces here, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Shannon Tuck. As was introduced, I'm the Director of Development Services for the City of Asheville. But the Development Services Department is a new city department. It became effective formally in July of this year, and I was given director during that same month. So the forming of the Development Services Department is an effort for the city to enhance our service to the development community. So in the last 6 months, we've really been focused on what those customer service enhancements would be, what they would look like, and I'm going to talk about one of those efforts after I go over some permitting numbers that I think you'll all be interested in. Patty's helping me. She's handing out 2 different sheets. One has got some graphs on it, and the other one's got some text on it. So I'm going to begin by talking about the graphs. And I apologize. I was envisioning your old space in the mall and not thinking that there was a PowerPoint capability, so that's why you have a handout. But imagine it's a little bit easier to talk about it, when you have a big screen. But I think the handout is fine because I think you don't really need the detail to kind of understand the basic concepts. So what I'd like to also get into is that in the last 6 months, in addition to our customer service enhancements, we've really been trying to understand our permit numbers. So for years, the city's been reporting on the number of single-family home permits, the number of commercial remodels, whether it's up 10%, down 20%, things of that nature, just sort of that raw data. But what we haven't really done, I think effectively, is really looked at those numbers to kind of understand what those numbers are telling us. So that's part of one of the initiatives that our new department is doing. So we've tried to put together some simple graphs to kind of illustrate some of the things that we're finding. So to begin, on that first slide, you can see these first 2 graphs at the top, and I'll just point to those. Those illustrate the average number of permits per month in a calendar year, as well as the construction value of those permits per month in a calendar year. So sometimes when we look at this data, we look at a calendar year, sometimes we look at a fiscal year. The reason that on this first slide we look at the calendar years is because we like to compare it to previous years. So we're trying to kind of follow trends over time. For us, we like to look at that last 5-year period because it captures the recession. So it's helping us kind of figure out, well, what do we need to do to get back to where we were in 2007, 2008. And those of you who were here then, you'll remember that was one of our kind of construction booms during that time period. So you'll notice we have 2 different. We have the total number of permits and the construction value. The reason we look at both is because when it comes to development activity, both numbers are important to really kind of understand what's happening. We look at total number of permits because that's the volume. That's the number of applications that are coming in. That's the number of customer service contacts. All those applications have to get entered into a system. So that's an important number. But not all permits are created equally. So a single mechanical permit is not equal to a new commercial building or even a downtown hotel. So certainly the complexity of the permits vary. So in terms of staff resources, that's a really important number to consider as well. Additionally, you really have to kind of look at the 2 numbers in concert. If you look at just that first one, which is the
total number of permits, you'll see that there wasn't a whole lot of change. There's not a lot of ups and downs during that 5-year period. That's because the volume of permits really didn't change dramatically. You see a little bit of a dip in 2009, but it's relatively flat. So what that tells us is during that period, that recovery period, people were not doing the kind of shiny new construction. They were really kind of hunkering down and making do with what they had. When we really look at the detail, we see that there were a lot of small additions, renovations, commercial alterations, remodels. So people were making do with what they had. They were making improvements to the properties that they already had. And if you looked at just the volume of permits, you would think that we were starting to climb out of that recession in 2011, 2012. But the truth is, we weren't, not yet. If you look at the next graph, which is the construction values, you'll see that we still continue to drop in 11 and 12. And it's really not until this year, 2013, that you see the value going up. And so these are also important because the construction value sort of talks or speaks to it, has a relationship with property values, with economic growth, new buildings, new construction being added to our inventory typically means new jobs, new sales tax, all of those good things we look for in our economy. So you'll notice that there's quite a large climb between 2012 and 2013. So moving on to the graph that's just below that is again, looking at the calendar year, and we just break it out a little bit to look at some of the 3 main categories, which is single family, commercial, and multifamily. So you'll just notice that even in 2013, our single family market has not recovered to our 2008 levels. The new commercial, also not quite there yet, although it's really starting to pick up. But multifamily is one of those that you see has not fluctuated as much, and it's actually climbing, and we're close to our 2008 levels. If you were to ask any of our staff, I would say 90% of it, yes, well, what is really booming right now? They're going to say hotels and multifamily. I guarantee it. So those are that's why you see those numbers kind of looking pretty good. If you look on to the next slide, again, we're sort of breaking out the different permitting types. This time now, we're shifting from a calendar year to a fiscal year. It's because we're starting to look at construction values, and those construction values are important for our budgeting purposes and for our forecasting purposes. So this just kind of breaks down within this last fiscal year where we are currently with the number of permits and construction value. And I'll tell you that the total number of permits we are reaching we are definitely exceeding the last several years. It's the highest number we've seen since 2008. We're not quite at 2008 levels, but we're definitely picking up construction value as well. You see that total number at the bottom, 185 million. That's where we are in this fiscal year to date, so through January. The total construction value for 2012 is 225. So we are really, we're at about 73% of where we had expected to be at this point in the year. So we're doing really well. Or excuse me, not 73%, I think we're even higher than that. So moving on to the next slide, which is our revenue. So every permit has a fee, so that directly impacts our department's operating budget. That's important to us because we are not quite cost recovery, but we're pretty close in our department, and we strive to be. So we're trying to match the revenue with the services that we provide. So if our revenues are doing really well and we're anticipating a lot of activity, that allows us to hire additional staff to keep up with demand. So that's an important piece that we look at. Today we collected 1.6 million. This is where we were 73% above budgeted. We're at 73% just a little over halfway through the year. So again, doing really well. This is the first year since 2008 that we're expected to meet or exceed our projected revenue. So we're really happy about that. And we are looking, I just got approval yesterday to add a new building inspector to help keep up with demand. We're looking at adding possibly two more new positions as well. So the last slide is actually the one that kind of keeps me up late at night. In addition to tracking the activity that is occurring and understanding what those numbers mean, we're also attempting for the first time to kind of forecast projects that are going to be coming in the door. So for projects that are in the permitting review process, some of those larger projects that go through technical review, planning, zoning, city council, or those projects that maybe don't go through that process, but we have a high expectation. We're having conversations with the developers. We have a high expectation that they'll come in within that fiscal year. We're tracking those to kind of understand what is the demand going to be and where do we need to shift our resources. So currently, and we're only tracking projects that are over $5 million, I should mention. So there are a lot of smaller projects that we're not even really tracking at this point. So that list currently has 18 different projects on it, totaling over $400 million. So these projects have the potential of coming in within the next fiscal year. So remember, we're already at 185 million. Total last year was 225. We're projecting another 400 million. Now, not all of those projects will come in. Some of them will probably just go away. Some of them will come in the next fiscal year. They won't make that cutoff. But really positive numbers. And so but how we keep up with that is something that our department is grappling with right now. So those are the numbers. And I just want to mention briefly, I had said that we were looking at customer service initiatives. And so this other handout talks a little bit about ENKA, which is the city's new permitting system. The last time I met with you all, and I got up here and stood in front of you, was talking about the plan to launch ENKA. Well, ENKA has been launched. It was launched, we went live in November. For the last several months, we've really been working hard on tweaking all of the little, if you've ever done a great big software rollout, there are all kinds of issues that have come up that you never anticipated, and so we've been kind of working on correcting a lot of that. But it's a very complex system, and it requires a lot of customized scripting, and so we're working on these things right now. It has amazing capability, though, and we recognize that there's opportunity to really streamline some of our permitting. ACA stands for the ENKA Citizens Access. So this is a web-based interface for anybody in our community. Anybody can go on the city's website, type in an address, and look at the permitting activity for a piece of property. So if people have an interest in that, they can go in and kind of search it. We've already talked to the Asheville Board of Realtors, and they're interested when they list properties to kind of understand what is the permitting history, what kind of, you walk in and you see there appears to be a new deck, but there's no permit for that deck. Well, that's something to, raise a red flag. So they're really interested in this tool. Generally, a lot of our citizens are really interested in the tool, just to be able to see what's going on in the community. So that's just the citizen access piece. Within that, we have an opportunity for adding registered users. So licensed contractors, design professionals, people who would schedule inspections or want to pull permits will have special login registration numbers that allow them to get into the system and actually perform operations that previously would have required a visit to the department. So no longer do they have to call in to schedule inspections, they can do it online. And we're doing that now. Also pulling small permits. People can go online, if you just want a mechanical permit to replace the HVAC system, you can go online and do that. So those contractors are now doing that. We're working hard to get more people registered. We have 1,500 contractors that we work with on a regular basis. We only have 300 registered right now, but that number is growing every day. We're putting together some tutorials for folks who are interested. Some people learn, we recognize people learn in different ways. We're going to do something in-house that invite people in so they can ask questions and kind of work through the system. We're also going to do some online tutorials. Those will be posted on our website soon. So people who just want to sit at their desk and kind of become more familiar with that new system, then they'll have that opportunity. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. I think I'll just wrap up there.
Question? Mike?
Can I take the flip? Am I correct that currently the permitting office is open 4 days a week and inspections are done 5 days a week?
That's correct.
You're changing
Oh, we're
to
changing.
4 days a week. So
We are.
if the city's off on Monday, then the following week we'll have 3 days for inspections. And
Yeah.
I have a concern with that schedule on, say, HVAC change-outs, things like that. That could create a hardship. I'm hoping with the system, and we're registered on it, so we processed our first permits, and would be happy to provide you some input as to what we thought. But we're hoping that with it, we can schedule a more definitive time, because the way it's currently set up, we have to provide ladders, access, whatever it is for the inspector. So if it's a rooftop unit, we've got to leave a ladder tied to the building out there. Hopefully they show up the day they say. But I would like us to kind of explore that a little bit more, and if we can get a more, as I said, definite time, or maybe provide your people with resources that they can do some of the work themselves.
Yeah.
As far as getting it.
Yeah, well, certainly we are looking at all of those things that you mentioned, and you're not the only person who's expressed concern about dropping inspections on Fridays, and we recognize that that has an impact that needs to be adjusted for, either through doing some, offering some, equipment to our staff, or being able to have more predictable scheduled inspection times. Like most things in the city, we're always trying to balance cost, resources with meeting customer service demand. And what we're finding is that in order for our staff to cover inspections 5 days a week, requires then that we split our staff on, half of our staff come in on Friday and half of our staff come in on Monday, because they work long days. So they work basically 4 10-hour days. So, and every inspector works 4 10-hour days, but half of them work that fourth day on Friday and half of them work it on a Monday. So what's happened is we don't have enough inspectors on either day to meet up with the demand for those days. So by having everybody on the same 4 days, it helps us meet that demand. The other thing is we've lost a number of our senior inspectors who have high-level certifications. So some of the inspections that are coming in, we don't have enough staff to perform certain kinds of inspections. And we are working really hard on cross-training and bringing up some of our still remaining staff, but any of you who have kind of gone through that certification process, it can take anywhere from 6 to 10 years to get somebody from a level 1, level 2 certification to a level 3. And so it's a big investment that we put into those employees, and we really try to incent them to stay with us so that we can take advantage of it. The trick about predictable scheduling times is that we also have a goal and an initiative to reduce our vehicle miles traveled. So if I have to be at an inspection at 9 a.m. because that's what is convenient for the contractor, then I've got another inspection clear across town at 10 a.m. and it doesn't allow our inspectors to group the inspections in the same area so that they can be efficient and effective in reaching those, both in a timely manner as well as reduce the total vehicle miles traveled. So what we do offer, and you can do this online as well, is to put in the number and have the inspector call you. If people know that that's available, then I think we've had a good response, and at least it's predictable. The inspector will call and say, I'm going to be over there in an hour, can you get the ladder ready or do whatever. And that's been pretty effective. So it would be great. We would love to be able to say, yes, we'll be there at 9 a.m., but unfortunately, just with the resources that we have and the other goals that we have, we haven't been able to do that. So.
Thank you, Shannon. We appreciate it very much. In an equal opportunity organization, Jason Marks with Duke Energy, Walls with Duke Energy would like a few follow-up comments on Kelly Martin.
And I'm just, and real quick, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jason Walls, the district manager with Duke Energy here. I represent the 6 western counties. And first and foremost, just so everybody knows, here locally, we have a very constructive relationship with Kelly, the Sierra Club, and the other environmental organizations in town. And we have a lot of conversations, and although we disagree on a lot, we do have a very constructive relationship here locally, and I appreciate that, Kelly. Just a couple points. Kelly mentioned that North Carolina is now second in the U.S. when it comes to installed solar capacity, and that's a great achievement. And the utilities across the state have really been a big component in helping us achieve that ranking. And so we have been investing in solar. We continue to invest very heavily in solar, and we will continue to invest in the future. And so we're all excited about that. From a generation perspective, the Lake Julian plant does provide a very important electric resource to this region. And until we have a practical way of replacing that power plant with base load generation that we can count on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we simply can't retire that plant. But we're always looking for what's next. And that evaluation, that analysis continues, and we recognize that there are limitations with any type of generation that you pick, whether it's natural gas because of the limited supply here in the mountains of western North Carolina, solar that doesn't operate when the sun's not shining and not maximizing its operation, wind here in the mountains because we have beautiful high peaks that it may not be as as viable of an option of wind here. But we're always looking for what's next, and that analysis continues each and every day at the company. And so, from a coal ash perspective, Kelly mentioned that there was a serious accident at our Dan River plant where a stormwater pipe that was below a coal ash pond did burst, and it allowed both water and ash to enter the Dan River. And we take that very seriously. We're accountable and we're responsible for that event. And one of the questions that I've been asked recently over the past several days is, well, can that happen here at the Asheville plant? The stormwater system is designed very differently at the Asheville plant than it is at Dan River. There is no pipe below our ash pond dams that empties directly into the French Broad River. The ash dams at the Asheville plant on Lake Julian, they continue to be safe. They continue to operate as they were designed to do. And they're regulated and monitored by the state of North Carolina. And so I just wanted to kind of provide that background of that information. What Kelly said, a lot of that is conversations that we have on a daily, weekly, monthly, sometimes very, very routine basis, and I appreciate those conversations. There are some serious limitations with being able to retire a plant when you don't have a practical way to replace that electric generation, because quite frankly, our customers count on electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and we're committed to meeting that expectation of our customers. We're also committed to providing electricity that is clean as it can possibly be.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate your comments. I'd like to call your attention to the sheets on the table from NCDOT. They are having a public hearing Tuesday, and would like for you to join that. And if you can't get there, then go online and post your comments, and they would like it very much. I think we need to hear more from our folks on these, and other than that, let's go to work, folks.